Well, welcome to another episode of Providence Threads. This second season, we're talking all about the multiplication of disciples and leaders and new ministries, church plants. We want to see God's movement in our day among us. But to do that, we have to have real conversations about raising up the next generation. And speaking of raising up the next generation, we brought in the most perfect guest today. It's our own Marcy, director of our children's ministry. And Marcy, we just want to talk about kids and families and parents and raising up disciples in the home today. One of the reasons we brought you here, I remember going through the whole interview process a couple of years ago. What I loved so deeply about you, it was about I want to disciple my own family. And what I learned in my own family, I want to bring into every other family. So welcome. Give us a quick update as far as children's ministry. And we're kind of coming to the close of a season here, but give us your heartbeat and what are some things that are exciting you?
Yeah, well, we're always excited about kids in the church and what they're doing. The people that step into that, it's great to see that they have that same passion, and that's been just a blessing this year. In the last couple of years, we've made a couple of changes just in ministry things that have been intentional to meet the kids where they're at. 3 years ago, I don't feel like we were quite doing that. We weren't having or seeing what kids needed, and through the years, we've seen that they have definitely wanted a space to bring conversation, to have people meet them where they're at. So we've made some shifts in our curriculum that have allowed for our leaders to have just real raw conversations over scripture and that connect it to their everyday life. So that's been exciting.
Speak to that, because sometimes I think, we'll send a child to children's ministry and we give them the cute little story and we hope they get something. But kids are ready to have deeper conversations.
Oh, yeah. Even I would say even at a preschool level, we have heard just kids excited and actually grasping the word, which is amazing because I don't think people give kids enough credit. They tend to think that they're too young or they don't know or they won't learn. And it's, I think, really all about meeting them where they're at and at their level and just having open conversation with them and bringing scripture into that has been just like a partnership that the Lord's provided. And it's been, really, really good just to see them carry that with them and even excited to share with their parents what they've learned. But then it's also like, okay, parents, now that's where you pick off and continue that conversation. And that kind of started back in the summer of last year. We had where the children's ministry picked out the top 10 Bible stories.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and that was just a really neat moment because we also had interns who were in high school that were dreaming up the lesson plans. So then you have like the whole church kind of coming together because their parents are learning the same scripture that they're learning in class. And it's kind of a perfect setting to like branch off of that around the dinner table and just say, hey, like you learned what we learned. How did that go? Or continue a conversation. Because again, I think just conversation is so something that kids are reaching for and wanting.
And it happens in random times. We had Steve DeLoof here last week. We were talking about a different topic, but he's also grandpa. And he was talking about, boy, when he has Ezra and you open up the Bible or you're just driving, all of a sudden these random things come out. He was like, we were driving in the car the other day and he was like, hey, Papa, Jesus is God.
Yeah,
right. And it just, these comments that come out, and I believe the Spirit of God is shaping these young hearts.
Oh, 100%. It's Ezra is the sweet boy, and I love him and his dad, Nate. And in church, you will see he sometimes carries a Bible. It's a book, but it's a Bible that he carries like his dad. So it's kind of like a model, right? Seeing that and just I don't think parents realize that is what kids grasp. You know, they are the first model of their faith. And where they lead and where God leads them is important.
Deuteronomy 6 is a key verse that you talk with your team about. And I love that. It's these commandments are to be upon your hearts, talking to us as adults, right? So it starts there, but then impress them. That's like putting it on their forehead, right? Impress in them. And it says, when you sit down like this around the dinner table, when you're driving in a car, because we don't walk much anymore, and you're lying down, you're rising up. I mean, all the time talking about spiritual things because we are in such a spiritual battle. How are you seeing that in children's ministry being played out? Like this intentionality of being at home in discipling, or these things?
Right.
What are you seeing, and what kind of word do you have to parents?
Yeah, so I even think it starts around our huddle. We have a huddle on Sunday mornings, and in conversation with our leaders, because they are a part of that as well. I tell them, if you get to a point where a kid is having a conversation, opening up a conversation, that curriculum goes out the door. Like, you focus on that and be able to engage in that, because that's where real relationship starts. And I think the same for parents. There's lots of opportunities that I think we're given that we take advantage of. For instance, driving your kids to school. A lot of parents will be like, oh, I don't have time for that. They can ride the bus. I have children myself, and I have had some of the most
You
impactful.
have more than just
I have a tiny ministry,
Yeah.
but I think that some of the most meaningful conversations have come from taking our kids to school, or bringing them back from school and being the first one that they're talking to when they get into the car, and being able to connect that and continue it. Sometimes our conversations have to continue when we get home, and that just is so important. I feel like for parents to, if not, and maybe you can't take them to school, but when they get off the bus, meeting them and just having conversation, because the first thing they're going to reach for, if they have one, is a phone. And likewise for parents, because you're coming off of a hard work day and you want a couple minutes of rest, but you'll be so fulfilled just having conversation with your kids.
And those conversations often don't happen in the most perfect setting or times, right?
Mm-mm.
But being aware, before we started this, we were just talking and trading some notes about what's going on. I'm walking with some 20-somethings, and the phrase that I often hear is, I wish I could have talked to my parents about this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just maybe the shame or the embarrassment or just not knowing or how mom and dad are going to respond. But sometimes it's testimony of parents just aren't available. Can you speak into that and the importance of parents just being so tuned in for discipleship to happen?
Yeah. And I think tune in, but also just be real, authentic. I think we have had conversation. We have Anchored, which is a mom's group. And the moms around the table have just shared, like, I don't know, or sometimes I'm unsure. And that's okay. And that's okay for your kids to know that too. I think it's important that as parents, we leave a space for kids to know that there's a sense of being vulnerable with each other.
Yeah.
And being able to be like, we don't have it figured out, but together we can learn, and we know who does, like pointing them again to Christ and to the word and to scripture. And I think it's important that there's that vulnerability both from parents and children, just to say, like, hey, that opens up the space for children to say, hey, I'm struggling. And for the parent to meet them with, okay, let's figure this out together. And that's continuous conversation and just being honest.
What I appreciate about Anchored, and I just want to make sure that that is so clear for young families in our church. Again, I think as kids develop, they don't know if they can go to mom and dad for everything, right? And then they just kind of bury it, or they're finding it on with friends, or they're finding it online. But I think the same thing too with parents, like, oh, we should have a perfect home, or we should have this all figured out, and then they stay isolated. This idea of being isolated is a challenging thing. We want to build community where there's vulnerability, there's remove shame. If you haven't watched the episode with Jenna talking about shame, when we stop right now, go back to that and talk, spend time thinking about how do we present ourselves authentic and real in community together. And that's what you're trying to develop.
Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful thing when you start to lift that veil, because you realize that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because shame often makes us feel like we are. And that's what the enemy wants, right? So we created or began, Lord has just been blessing spaces to be authentic and pull in people like mentors and moms who are down the road to be able to share, like, you may feel alone now and you may feel like no one has ever gotten through this, but guess what? There is somebody that has. So yeah, I think it's important to continue to search and create spaces that can bubble up and just be able to become a community and a resource for parents to not feel like they're alone.
Talk about some resources that you would love to see develop further in each home of a family with young children. What are some ways that parents can intentionally disciple their kids?
Yeah, I think for sure the top one would be conversation. We are living in a society where there's just so many things that pull our families apart or pull our kids to sports, or different activities that they have going on, and just realizing to prioritize conversation, again, whether that's in the car or that's at night, however you see fit. It's just making that a priority would be kind of the baseline. I would love to see just more conversations between kids and parents. We were at one point in our family just really struggling with finding a rhythm. And my son was struggling with some bullying that was going on at school, and our life was a mess. And I will never forget, I sat down with somebody who I respected very well, and he asked me, "What are you doing at home?" And I go, "What do you mean? We're busy. We have so many things going on. Like, we have all of these things." And he's like, "Well, are you in the Word with your kids? And are you, having devotions? Are you rewiring your brain to think of the Lord when you're going through these things?" And so that was the ultimate, like, oh my word, we're not. And so in that moment, I remember sitting around the dinner table, and I told my husband, like, we're missing.
We got to change some things
Yeah,
here.
we're missing the greatest opportunity to disciple our kids. And I think we put our faith into too many other things. Like, oh, if we put them in this program, or if we put them in this, they'll be good. But true discipleship really starts in the home.
Yeah.
And it's by what we do as parents. So from that, we started to do devotions at night with our girls. And it's something, and I've heard this and anchored too with a mentor mom, that something at the middle of the night or the end of the night when you're with your kids and you're closing out your day where they just want to talk for hours.
Yeah.
And there was some nights where the mom said she sat on the floor and the lights were off and just sat there, and 2 and 3 minutes later, her daughter would just start talking to her. So yeah, I know it sounds like a lot, right, to prioritize, but it's something that is just so important, whether that's you're sitting there, you're closing out your day with them, or you're at the dinner table and you just have a conversation and have just a resource like I'm drawing a blank on that, but like devotion, a devotion around the table, something to start the conversation for your kids at home is a great tool.
And we are living in a culture right now that is so busy, and every moment is filled. And if it's not filled, we turn into just the scrolling. I think one of the first things that families need to really wrestle with, moms and dads, is how do we create more margin in our life for these random conversations to take place? Because that's where it really happens, right?
Right.
I would dare say, have one of the most busy families
just a tad
in the church. But you and Jose have been having real conversations. Like, how do we make discipleship in our household a priority? What are some things that you have put in? I mean, you said some devotions around the table, bedtime rhythms. What are some other things?
I also think even being on staff, serving in some way is huge to model and to bring along our kids with us. I have one here with me at work, but I also have brought in my son too. And it's that, again, authentic, like my kids have come with me to deliver a meal to somebody in need and ask, like, hey, what are we doing? And I think it's important that parents realize how much of a model they are in their kids' lives. And I understand that comes with like a lot of pressure, but in doing simple things like serving your church in one way and bringing your kid along with you, it shows a lot. And they're able to ask questions and to wonder why. We prioritize some things. I think for our family, we try to prioritize serving the church and just making sure that we're showing our kids that it's a priority to be here and to be present and to be plugged in. Because again, we want them to see the church as a place that they come back to and somewhere that they're able to see how they're used through God's work and just, continue to point them back. I remember a vivid conversation I had with my son at one point. I said, sometimes I don't have all the answers, but I know who does. And that was as a parent, because they're looking to you for the answer.
Yeah, I thought you were a superhero and you knew everything.
And I don't. So I think it's a real sense of vulnerability. And I remember praying into that moment, like, Lord, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, but don't let it be anything that's going to ruin my relationship with my son. And it wasn't that. It was a beautiful moment, and it's continuing to point all of our kids back to the Lord, because ultimately they're not our kids. I think we forget that we are also a child of God, and they are as well. So, yeah.
When you spoke about going out and serving together, I remember when Luke and Ella were younger, we would have nights, all right, everyone's home. We'd get in the car and we would randomly go to some people in our church who we knew were struggling or needed encouragement. And we'd just show up, knock on the door, and say, hey, we're here to pray for you, or we're here to do this project, and those were some of the best nights. You serve together, you see that you're making a difference together, you come home and you celebrate with like, yay, God, thank you for those opportunities. Getting families out and serving as a whole family together. Again, we got to create more margin for those spaces to happen.
100%. And I think, we've had conversation about that, and it's also allowing your kids to see the world, right? With somewhat of not a bumper, but you're right there. You're a part of that. So you're able to kind of guide those conversations. And that's important too, right? Because the world is going to be the world. It's never going to change. And we have such a short margin as parents to walk with our kids. And I think parents need to lean more into being open to have spaces of like, yeah, this is some of those things. And these are how, we meet those people where they're at. And that happens with serving, through as a family, or having your child serve in another way where they can have ownership in how they're contributing to the church. I think it's huge just to have that at a young age, to be able to just prioritize that is something that it's in Scripture. We just talked about this before we started, but it's in Scripture. They'll come back to that. And it's important that we realize as parents, we are kind of laying that, the groundwork for them. So yeah, just keep encouraging them to serve together with one another and being able to walk through life as partners.
Talk a little bit about your vision for ministry here, because you mentioned a little bit earlier, parents, you are the primary discipler in your child's life. And sometimes in our culture and how busy we are, it's like, oh, I got them into a Christian school. I bring them to church. I'm doing my job, which are all good things. Right. But your vision for how the church comes alongside families might look a little different. Can you share that?
Yeah, I think I would encourage families to see the church as a tool and something to help them. But it really is the conversation and the parents just being there for kids. I think, again, it's important to set that for them. And I think we have to look at the church as a partner and a tool for us to use with our kids, but encouraging to have conversation is just kind of the heartbeat I feel like the Lord has put forth for us. Again, that's why we changed our curriculum to meet them, because we have multiple kids coming in on Sundays and they keep going back to, well, this happened today at school and this happened, because they're looking for that space.
And those are perfect times now to bring scripture and story and.
Yep. And I've heard, like, if somebody says, how was your day? Very vague. And they could say, oh, good. Oh, fine. And I ran across something lately that said, like, oh, tell me how you saw God today. Yes. How you saw God working today.
Asking better questions.
Right. And just, it takes a little bit of thinking on their end to say, oh, wait, what did I see? Or what did that look like? And I think that is different, right? That's different than a traditional Sunday program that comes in and is just like, oh yeah, here's your lesson. Here's what you're learning. Here's your fun craft. And it's like, oh no, here's the conversation we're having. Here's, where we can start to see, like, oh, there's some struggles. And for parents, that's the same, just encouraging to have real conversation and being graceful. And you don't have to have it all together. You don't. I can openly admit, I think I shared a little bit too much, like, oh, I don't have it all together. And that just real authenticity is something that I've seen just around our whole church, just has been something that people have gravitated towards.
So we're not aiming for perfection.
No.
We're aiming just obedience and take the next step of growth.
Yeah.
What I'm really appreciating about this season of Providence is we're having a whole host of new faces come in, and many of them either haven't been in church ever or they haven't been in church in a long time.
Yeah.
So speak to the parent who might be listening who's like, I just don't know the Bible, and so I can't disciple my kid. Or maybe somebody's been in church all their life and they still feel like they don't know enough. Like, let's send it to you or somebody else. What would you say to somebody struggling with that? Like, I'm just not equipped or qualified.
Well, we have to remember that the Lord chose us as their parents. And that's the first reassurance, I feel like, right? Like, they were given to us specifically, not by chance, not by just some weird random reason. And there's, again, beauty in that, whether you don't know or you do know, sharing with your child, that you're either walking through this together or that you know a little bit, or pointing them to what you do know, is going to be huge for them. I think it's encouraging for parents to create a space where their kids continue to come back to them. And even sharing that you don't know allows that, because it's okay to not know, and it's okay to learn together. And I think parents have to find a nice space to evolve with their kids, but still continue to point them back to biblical truth. And sometimes that's looking together, searching together and trying to find the answer. It's fine not to know. I think that's okay. But creating a space where you can learn together is what is a real good takeaway, I feel like.
So this summer, you're developing what you're calling the favorite, or the fave, week of the summer. So family, adventure, and values. Fave. Tell us a little bit kind of the vision and what's starting to take shape so children and families can get ready.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, we put on like a VBS program, and it was great. It was amazing. We had all kinds of people here, all kinds of kids, and then it was it. That was it. Like, it was a great week, and then it closed out, and we sent home a devotional, and I don't know if anybody read it. It's kind of one of those things you close out, and it's like, oh yeah, that was awesome. The following year, we had some family events, and it seemed like families were busy in the summer. So then our vision team came together, and we're like, all right, what are the key things we want to have take away? And one of those are family. Having families come together, and then values came in because we want to equip parents with that. And so we're like, how do we create a space where we could have both? And so then our brains got to working, and we're like, all right, we're going to create a program where it's encouraging and fun for the kids. And then we're going to pull in families. So that's the exciting piece, because we know you're busy. We know we have a ton of things going on, but here's this here's this chance for you to be able to come in and just kind of meet your kids where they're at. So that's kind of what's underway for the summer. We are pulling in our values here at Providence. So we have belonging, we have equipped, we have mission, and I'm drawing a blank on the
family and rooted.
Yeah. Oh, rooted. Yeah. Well, those two are the same.
Yeah.
But so we're taking those and then diving into them. The last day, we're going to be bringing in families and encouraging them to do things together as they walk through our stations. And then we're sending them off with something super special for them to continue, because we don't want to give an opportunity where it doesn't continue and create a great space for families to still connect. So that's exciting. I feel like just to be able to meet parents and kids where they're at, and create a space where you don't have to do anything other than show up and be willing to connect with your kids. And I think that's going to be a real opportunity for parents to be able to slow down and just be able to enjoy some of the best things about parenting. I feel like obviously connecting with your kids, conversation with your kids. So yeah, it's going to be great.
And I heard you're bringing in some special heroes potentially for the week.
Yeah.
How cool.
Good superhero vibes. I don't know. Some of them might be familiar. We'll see.
All right. What week is that going to be?
So that is going to be the week of June 22nd. So that is the week right before the 4th. So a little bit before. So that Monday through Thursday we'll be here.
All right. Last question for you. If a parent is listening in, what is the number one thing you want them to hear from the children's ministry director?
Yeah, that you don't have to be perfect or have it together. I think is important, and that you were called, you're already equipped. The Lord has already picked you out for your kids, and continue to just walk with them. Continue to be a space where they can return to, and together, including the Lord. I feel like the Lord is the center of everything, and if you continue to have that, He'll guide you through it all. And we're just here and happy to partner. I love leaving my door open, having conversations with moms. And I often say, like, I don't know if I can give advice because I'm still in it with you, but,
you're not alone.
Right. You are not alone, for sure.
I love your heart for discipleship, for the families, for children. I love what you're doing with your team. Grateful to have you a part of the staff here at Providence. And again, I just want to call to any parent who's watching. If you have questions about children ministry, your own child, please connect with Marcy. If you're just wondering too, how do we build up children's ministry here? We'd love, it's not just for parents to be involved or young people. We'd love intergenerational, because there's something powerful when that happens. But again, thank you for tuning in to Providence Threads. Again, we are focusing on raising up and multiplying disciples, leaders, and new ministries and new churches. We want to see a movement of God here in our own community and around the globe. So thank you for participating and partnering with us. Grace and peace. We'll see you at the next episode.